Joshua Drake Randall. Welcome back to the channel if you're a returning member, and if you are a new member, welcome. This is Epictastic Joshua, and here I talk movies, TV, and on a few occasions, music and anime. This is going to be the start. I've been teasing this, and I'm very excited I can finally do this. Welcome to the first in a plethora of historical or fantasy epic reviews leading up to Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. This is going to be my very first pick, and I wanted to start off with something a little more underrated. What's a movie that doesn't get talked about in this war historical period piece dramas? So I decided to go with something that's a little bit underrated surface. And that movie, of course, is Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. So I'm really enthusiastic to get this review series going, and I'm really enthusiastic to actually talk about this movie. I told you, didn't I tell you I had this planned? I told y'all. I told you. This movie is directed, co-written, and produced by Peter Weir, a very underrated director, and this is based on the series of books by Patrick O'Brian, which is compiled of the Aubrey and Maturin series. This movie is based on the series of books. There are 20 historical nautical novels, 20 completed and 1 unfinished by Patrick O'Brian, and set during the Napoleonic Wars. The plot follows the HMS Surprise as it relentlessly pursues a superior French warship, the Acheron, off the coast of South Africa, blending thrilling sea battles with deep character development and exploration at the life at sea. This is a movie that I've always wanted to talk about on this channel. This is one of the many in this review series I always want to talk about, along as usual. I feel like this movie is extremely underrated, and it never gets the appreciation that I feel like it truly deserves. This is one of those films that it came out at a very interesting time in the year 2003. And 2003 movies were just ruling that year. You had the Matrix sequels, you had Finding Nemo, you had The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, you had Peter Pan. And this movie was supposed to start a big franchise of films then. And there was a clear reason why it kind of didn't get any big franchise love after this only one film. However, due to low box office numbers, despite critical acclaim and multiple Oscar nominations, it didn't really do as well as it should have. It made money. It made $210 million worldwide. But when you put this movie out against stuff like The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King and Elf and the Peter Pan remake, you kind of screwed yourself here.
Curses! Come on, man, damn!
This movie has been giving a lot of praise ever since 2003 release, but it's also received some criticism with it being a movie about millennial men who are watching the film and such. But over the years, this movie has garnered a following, and they're trying to do prequels to this now. So this has been one of those movies that has been very overlooked ever since then, and it's a movie that's has been talked about ever since it came out, but not in the way it should. So here, this is actually going to be something I actually get to talk about. The project came to be as a personal project of 20th Century Fox executive producer Tom Wolfman, who recruited, of course, Peter Weir to direct. And At first, Peter Weir, he didn't want to make the movie at first because he didn't think he could make it as good as it could have been, and he was afraid that this would not turn out so well. So he had plans to make this a big film franchise, but not seeing the box office results, that didn't turn out that way. So they took it to Samuel Goldwyn Company, and then with all the rights and such, this movie went through multiple different directors, like John McTiernan, and Touchstone Pictures was going to be a producer. But then in 1998, we finally were able to get this movie off the ground when he took over as CEO, and Universal and Miramax stepped in and helped to pay for the movie along with the Samuel Goldwyn Company. So this is something that I think is a very huge win. So, and I think is actually something that is a much warranted win. So the movie was able to get off the ground, and then the movie came around and it combined 3 different novels, but the movie takes place in 1805. And they had to cut a lot of things out when it comes to homosexuality and violent oppression and corporal punishment of sailors and severe hardships in order to secure a PG-13 rating. I just felt like watching it. This movie just got a recent release on the 4K, and this movie has been one of the more underrated films that no one really wants to talk about. So I'm gonna put some love on the film. So my experiences when it comes to Master and Commander is very interesting because when I first saw this, I was younger, I was a kid at the time. It was one time on AMC and such, and I did find the movie to be pretty entertaining, but I wasn't so sure why I found it entertaining. Maybe it was just because it was like to see with these different people, and it just felt like a little spectacle. But having seen this movie and rewatched it again, because I do have the movie on digital and very much on digital, even with the 4K restoration for digital, which I don't physically own the movie, but I will say this is one of the best historical epic films, and I will also argue this is one of the most accurate films in terms of that time period in the 1800s. I think Master and Commander is a really great, strong film. Starting off with the easiest pro is that everything in this movie is really filmed well. This movie is very well shot and a well-lit film. You could tell with the $150 million budget with Peter Weir's use, the great efforts are used to reproduce this look with Men at War. With 2,000 hats, 1,900 pairs of shoes, and 400 pounds of hair are used on all these different actors. They filmed this on an actual ship that they decided to replicate and film in sound stages and also on location at sea. And this was easily the most hardest thing that they had to do, but this was at the time where you had to kind of do that, and they put themselves in that position to film most of this at sea for 10 days while the rest of it was filmed on sound stages and studios. And I would say they do a very good job in terms of the filming. This movie looks great. Still, almost 22 years later, $150 million is on screen. You could tell that everyone was on their A game, and especially in the costumes and production design team, and even Weather Workshop was willing to help them out when it comes to this. So the movie does look really well done in this. And not only that, the sound designers, this is one of the biggest things I want to compliment, because these sound designers had a lot of hell of tasks to do to record so many different realistic sounds and the battle scenes and storm scenes. So, of course, these guys did a lot to try and make it feel like you're actually in that era. with the screeching bellow and the deep howl as such. And for the sounds of it, these sound designers does a great job. Everyone in this, I feel, does an amazing job at bringing this film to life. But it's really the sound mixers and the director and the production design and costume designers that has to make this stuff work. Because if that doesn't work, the movie doesn't really work as well as it should. And that's the number one thing you do have to take into the account when you're doing a movie like this. You have to make everything work to the best of its advantages. And I feel like from this, they really did do the research, and you could tell they really put their all into it. Especially when you watch the behind-the-scenes documentary. If you have the this collector's edition DVD, or if you have the film digitally, I compliment them for it. And everyone in this team deserves their flowers. But Peter Weir is easily the thing that's holding this movie together in terms of his direction, because he is having to be asked to do a lot in terms of this. He's directing the film and also one of the co-writers and such. And I will say this is one of the more underrated films of his career. He's one of the greatest naturalist filmmakers to ever do it, and he chooses to do old school filmmaking on the display level and practical effects. And it's kind of what I hope the Odyssey will be in terms of Chris Nolan doing old school practical effects like this. Because as we all know, Chris does not like to use a lot of CGI. But when he does use CGI, he does do it. And he makes it very seamless. But also, what this movie really does capture very well is the tension between everything that's going on between these two ships. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot of brothers in arms, and it is one of the best depictions of what living in a ship back in the early 1800s would feel like. And it goes there. You're actually there, and you're actually having a really good time watching this, and all this crazy stuff plays out very well. That you're seeing a really good adventure side. This is a slow burn for 2 hours and 18 minutes. It is a slow burn, so that is something you also have to take into account, because this is not an action movie. You are going to get your action scenes in here, but this is a movie that puts the character over story. And that's something that you're going to have to either be okay with for this one time for the first couple of minutes of the movie, or you're going to be against. And you are pretty much being put in this position to follow these group of characters, which they're all played very well and all very written well in this movie. There's a lot of great actors in here. Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany are the main standouts as to why you watch this movie, because they do a very good job, and you do get to care about them in this role. You have Russell Crowe as Jack Aubrey, and then you have Paul Bettany as Stephen Maturin. There's also other actors like James D'Arcy, Robert Pugh, and Max Bennett, Lee Ingleby. You have Billy Boyd, which this was him at the height of his career after Lord of the Rings came in, and he had the last movie came out as well. You also have Patrick Gallagher, John DeSantis, and you have a little cameo, which I did not know he was in this, so I rewatched this. You have Joseph Morgan as William Warley, the captain of the Mizentop. So when I first saw him, I was like, hey, this is Klaus in here. We love the character of Klaus, because I am a fan of Klaus, and I am a fan of the originals. I'm not so big a fan of the Vampire Diaries, but you know what? This was one of his first movies, which would be funny. The movie he would do the next year would be another historical film called Alexander. Trust me and a good YouTube friend that I came in contact with We will get there. Acting in this movie, I think, is really strong. There's not a lot of women in this movie, so I will say this right now. So, if you're coming into this expecting a lot of women in this, there's not a lot of girls in here. So, I will tell you this now. You're going to be highly disappointed. But this is one of the few times where I can actually tolerate where there's not a lot of women in this film because of the time period that it takes place in. But I think the acting in the movie is really good from everyone. Action sequences and cinematography, again, old school practical effects. You do get your CGI here, but this is really a movie that is telling you and is putting you in this position where you get to actually see these characters. And that's the thing I actually really enjoyed about the film, is that the effects are great, the action scenes are worth it, and you get to spend time in this world. You get to enjoy seeing how this action plays out. You get to see a lot of great character moments. So it's a well-written script, it's a well-written movie in terms of character interactions and dialogue. There are great action set pieces. Again, for a movie that's not an action movie that is relying on the historical side of things, the movie gets the job done very well. And I have to give this movie a lot of credit for it because you're putting yourself in a situation where you kind of have to invest yourself in this. Cinematography in this movie looks absolutely beautiful. This is one of the most beautifully shot movies in the 2000s. When people say they want movies to look like this, they mean do it like this. Like, you don't have to use everything CGI. You don't have to overcomplicate with so much film grain and such, but what this movie is able to do, it teaches you that you're not there and you don't need a lot of CG and such. And that's the kind of thing I do want to see some of these newer movies get back to, because CG and such is cool, but it doesn't get any better than actually watching, when you're actually feel it, when I'm actually there. Not that I'm against using CGI, because of course you are gonna have to use it in a movie like this, but it makes it really more fun when you get to have practical effects, when you're actually there, when you're actually a part of this world. And that's the thing I really do compliment when it comes to this movie. Cinematography is excellent. Editing by your editors, Lee Smith, fantastic. The score, amazing. Christopher Gordon, Richard Todney, and Iva Davies. The music makes you feel lived in this world. I really do love the score, and I love the way this movie plays out. And I also really dig the fact that for being historically accurate, they do a hell of a great job in making it look seamless and making it work. That's how you do it, because you should always make sure you are on your A game when you're doing shit like this. If you don't fully commit to what you are and you don't satisfy people, you're just kind of going along the motions and you're not really executing things right. It's one of the most historically accurate great things in terms of what it's trying to do, and despite a few changes, I will say I don't mind a lot of the changes that they make here. So they actually do work in this movie's favor. So that's something I actually think really does make it very worthwhile. I also will say the movie does look very good. So, and by the time this movie is over, I was just very enthralled. So overall, I feel like this movie did everything it needed to make it great and to make it every bit as good as it say it is. I don't really have too many issues. I guess two issues that are gonna break some people. One, I do think this movie is going to test your patience with it being a slow burn, because this movie is not an action movie. I will say that right now. If you're going into this expecting wall-to-wall action on ships, it's going to take a while to get there. Also, I will say this again. If you're coming to expect a lot of girls and a lot of estrogen in here, this is not that type of movie. So I will say that's something that I also feel you kind of have to take into account, because of the time period, this is not going to be one of those movies where you get to have a lot of women and a lot of girls into it. So you have to know what you're getting yourself into. And so I think if you're willing to stick with this for the 2 hours and 18 minutes, with these great characters, with these great performances, with the immense direction by Peter Weir, which Peter Weir is a director that he should be talked about more, and he should be getting his flowers more for a legendary Australian director. Between this and The Truman Show and some other movies that he's done, the guy needs his flowers because he committed here. This is just living proof. We don't get a lot of movies like this anymore. Maybe if the Odyssey does do well, and for some people it is not going, this is a movie that has to give you have to give it a full attention. Overall, Master and Commander Far Side of the World, for the first in this little epic reviews series, if this movie may not be a wall-to-wall action movie, but what this movie excels at, it excels at. You have great characters, you have good dialogue based on the series of books that they were taken from. It's immersive, the historic authenticity is brilliant, and it gives you the claustrophobic and crowded and violent chaotic life of a small Royal Navy frigate, as you get to care about this big fight, big tension between both of these ships, the British and the French. So if you are someone who has not seen Master and Commander The Far Side of the World, I highly encourage you to check it out. But just know who you are getting into this, because this is going to be one of those movies where you're either going to be for this or you're not going to enjoy this as much, depending on the pacing. This is one of the more historically accurate and based exclusively based on fantastic source material, and I think this is one of the best movies of the 2000s and one of my personal favorite movies of all time. I'm going to give this film a Spider-Verse seal of approval. This is a great, epic film. With that being said, in the comment section down below, what did you guys think of Master and Commander? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Have you seen it? Have you not seen it? Have you read the books that this movie is based off of? Like I said, there will be a lot more in this review series coming. We have 300, Kingdom of Heaven, Troy, Alexander, Gladiator, Lawrence of Arabia, so many others that I'm going to be getting to, and I'm very excited to finally get this project going, leading into the Odyssey. So, as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. All my social media links are in the description box down below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos such, and as always, stay Epictastic, join the Epictastic, and you guys, peace.